Hey everybody, me Joe from Ball USA. Welcome to the 11th episode of the Ball USA Shop Time Live 1/6 scale Nieuport 17 Build Along series. Thanks for coming in. Welcome to the shop, Chuck and Ronnie. It's good to see you guys.
Hey Joe, how are you?
Good. We start to get people in already. I want to make sure I give a quick reminder. Don't forget, if you go over to ballsusa.com and enter in coupon code N17 build, all caps, no spaces, on the website, you will be entered in and be able to get a 10% discount on your very own 1/6 scale Nieuport 17 kit. Also, we are coming to crunch time on the quarter scale giveaway. Don't forget, we are at, let me just pull it up. I'm just going to pull it up so you can see.
Just going to ask you on that.
We are at 2,960. So we need 40 more people to subscribe to that channel by this Friday. So
that's what
like
Friday, yeah.
and share like crazy. Friday is the cutoff. If we don't hit 3,000 by Friday, we're not going to give away that kit. So make sure you like it. Make sure you share it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that bell button so that you can get notified of any time we're going live. And make sure you take place in doing that. So this is going to be episode 11, believe it or not. We're quite far along on this. And last week we've got the primary wing mostly built. We stopped right at the wingtip construction area. We stopped on page 29 at step 1. So let's go ahead and get started with this week.
Okay, thanks guys. And just like Joe said, last week we stopped at the wingtip. We built the aileron. And the reason we stopped at the wingtip was that Balsa does something really unique on the wingtip to create the washout effect on the aircraft. And what that washout effect is, and I'll show you really quick here. And if you can see on there, is you can see that the aileron has a little bit of up. Okay, and what we've done, remember that notch out that we cut that we cut out a little bit prematurely in the spar early on? That's a key integral part of this, okay? And another integral part of it is there's a shim going forward on that right against the leading edge, but we'll talk about that here in a second. But anyways, long story short, that's what creates that really neat washout effect. And it's done the same way in the quarter scale version as well. So, and it really makes this a really nice enhanced slow flying airplane for those really nice lazy Sunday evening flying. So, but let's get going. All right. Okay, so we stopped at the wing panel. What we have not done is add shear webs. We're going to come to that in a minute as well. And we're going to work on this wingtip. So looking in the photos of step 1 in wingtip construction on page 29, it talks about having our 1/4 by 1/2 by 12-inch sticks. And they want you to cut them to length and to kind of pre-shape them, if you will, for the airline radiuses and the tip radiuses the wing leading edge radius and the airline radius. Don't do that. Just cut them square. You'll see on the plans when the way the sticks lay, cut them square. We're going to show you a little tip there. And not only are we going to show you how to do a really neat job on those radiuses, but also how to make a matching set as well. So anyways, I got my 1/4 by 1/2. I'm going to mark it. I have it laid over the plans. I have it laid in that notch on that bottom spar plus a 1/4 inch stick butted up against the leading edge. And what that's going to do is that's going to cause a rise. And it's going to fit in there. I'm going to mark it where I need to cut. Get my Zona saw here and take a couple of clean swipes. That looks about right. Now, also what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to sand in a little bit of a bevel at the trailing edge there, because that the way that mounts in and goes on since that stick goes on an up sweep, I'm going to sand in a little bit of a bevel on that just so we get that nice tight finish or fit, I guess. Okay, now I'm going to pin this in place, because one thing I don't want to do here is make sure that it gets all in there in a nice position well until I do my final glue. Now, one thing I am not going to do is now I'm going to cut that forward piece, all right? And that forward piece is going to fit right up against, which is technically would be the leading edge side. It's going to fit right against the leading edge, but I do not glue it to that 1/4 by 1/4 square shim that we have down there in place. And I think Joe has a really good photo of that and what we're talking about. So what we're going to do, like I said, I'm going to pin everything in place, make sure everything fits nice and good. Yep, that's exactly what he's talking about. See that 1/4 inch shim there at the bottom? Avoid gluing your wingtip to that. So I'm just going to tack glue this all in place. I can glue it to the bottom spar. Okay, watch out. That's good. We're okay there. I'll glue it to the bottom to the back. All right. So now that wingtip's in there and it's set in place, and we've basically created that washout. But and in the manual, it tells you to remove it from the board, kind of sand things out, move things around before we do the shear webs. I'm pinned down. I'm happy with where I am on the board right now. I don't want to really add that next step. So we're going to add shear webs. And I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I hate shear webbing. Always have, and probably always will. But shear webbing is very key to the integral strength of this wing, okay? And without the shear webs in place, the wing would literally expand and come apart in flight, and then we'd have some really big problems. But Balsa does something that makes it really nice. And what they do is they do pre-cut shear webs for you. All right. There might be some final little trimming, sanding at the edges, whatever, to put them in place, but this is so much nicer than cutting all your individual pieces. I kind of did this earlier to show you guys that this is so easy and so simple, and it makes building a wing that much easier. Typically, when I build a giant scale wing, for example, like this hurricane behind me, and I have to double shear web that forward spar and the aft spar, it probably takes me just as long to fit and to cut and to fit all the shear webs for that wing than it does for me to frame up that wing. What Balsa USA does right here, it just speeds up the process by tenfold. Another great thing that the guys up there have done. So
one of the things I wanted to point out quick is this is probably in seeing other folks build and seeing how they do things. This is probably one of the most, I hate to use the term messed up, but it really is. When you look at other folks build, a lot of times you'll see gaps, you'll see spaces around shear webbing. Shear webbing is a lot of the strength along the center part of that wing. That's why the shear webbing is there, is to add strength, to put strength between the two spars. So you tie the two spars, the upper and the lower end, together. You need to make sure that we've talked about this a lot. You need to make sure you have good joints. So they shouldn't be crooked. They shouldn't be not fitting. They should fit exactly in each space. That way you get that strength from your wing.
Absolutely. And also because the forward spar and the aft spar are two different sizes, or physical in height, Balsa pre-cuts the shapes different as well. So when you open up your little bag there of shear webs, they are packaged all together. There's two different sizes. The smaller or the narrower ones, if you will, are for the rear spars. The larger ones are for the forward spar. And if you notice that the grain on the shear webs run vertically, and that's for strength. If they were run horizontally, that grain would split and open up those spars, and that's where the problems come. So just like Joe said, how key and integral these shear webs are. Earlier in the day, or earlier before the show, I kind of did a few shear webs just to get this process going along for you. But just to show you how easy and how fast this really goes, I'm gonna put in some shear webs for you. I'll probably put in about half while we're talking here, and that just shows you how fast that this really goes. And guys, I'm just using my thin CA. All right, I'm holding them in place. I'm doing little tack spots like we talked about, and let that CA wick in there really nice. Okay, now I'm just right now at the moment, I'm just doing them on the top side, and we'll come back and we're gonna do the bottoms here in a second. But let's go ahead, drop it in. That one fit in there just perfectly. Try not to make sure they don't have any bows or attention. I keep coming back and using that word tension from the previous episodes. Make a nice fit. That one went in there really nice. I'm gonna CA that one in. And on this particular aircraft, the shear webs run all the way out to the last two bays. So the last two bays on this wing have no shear webs, and that's okay, because all the flight loads are done from that point on the end of the shear webs to the roof. So I got 2 bays open here. I need to add one last one up in the front. That one's just a touch wide. So I'm just gonna take my sanding block, just knock a little fuzz off of it. And guys, yes, I did freshen up my sandpaper. And so remember, we want the sandpaper to do the work for you. So
we got a quick question. So Steve, that does get put underneath the leading edge. The leading edge on the Nieuport 17 causes the washout and the wingtip. That is the leading edge.
Yes.
And that quarter scale spacer does not stay there.
Nope.
That's what it should look like. This is the leading edge right here. So I'm just clarifying because we had a question. He's talking about whether or not it should be put under the trailing edge. Not in this case. This creates the washout for this wing. So that would be the leading edge.
That's why we wanted, and that's why we wanted to do this episode kind of on the wingtips, because looking forward as we read through, it's a little bit different to what you normally in your mindset and how that would work. But I'll show you here, and that's why I did my wing earlier or at the end of last episode. And you can see there, you can see how the wingtip, how the washout is right there is built in. All right, so it creates out all effect. It's kind of a reverse way of doing it, but ends up working really neat. And when I built the quarter scale version, as I mentioned a few times already, it took me a moment to realize what they were thinking and how they were doing. So that's kind of why we wanted to dedicate a little bit of an episode on that. But it worked great. It did on the quarter scale. It's going to do great here on this one. Okay.
One of the things I wanted to point out quick before we go too far along is when Chuck was earlier talking about leaving the wing squared, this is exactly right here what he's talking about. So in the manual, it states that they want you to go ahead and cut this to shape. You want to hold off on doing that because I saw something come up through on that too. So make sure when you're talking about leaving everything square, this is what it should look like right here. We're not going to sand this off round until later on.
Perfect. Okay. I have all the shear webs in place. There's a couple of little small house cleaning items I need to do. There are a couple of little triangle stocks in the aft corner and the leading edge of the airline. Don't forget those. Those are really important. The airline one was already done. We did that on last Friday. And I just remember, I'm going to add this one here. Those little triangles, they're small, but man, they work. And the last piece we're going to do is add what they call the tip strengthener, which is a 3/16 inch square. On the plans, it looks like it's 1/4 inch square, but in the instruction books, it's 3/16. So that's what we're going to use. So that's keyed in place there. That fits a little bit of trimming on the fit. Once again, once you guys get used to doing the little stick stuff, it's the eyeball. Figure out your eyeball works really well. I'm going to scrape that.
I want to welcome everybody in. I think we might have just lost Chuck. He froze. Yep, Chuck is frozen in time. So Chuck, if you can hear us, buddy, you are frozen, my friend. Want to welcome everybody in. I see Brian and Dale and Gary and Bob and David and Wild Bill, Sean, Jerry. Chuck, I don't know if he knows he is frozen or not.
He probably does not.
He's probably still talking. Oh, there he went.
He's probably trying to come back.
So hold on. I'm sure he's going to rejoin. Sorry for the delay. While we're waiting on Chuck, make sure you don't forget to go in to ballsusa.com, enter in coupon code N17BUILD, all caps, no spaces, for your chance to get 10% off your very own 1/6 scale Nieuport 17 kit. While we're talking about it, make sure you get on to the Boss USA YouTube channel and get that subscribe button. Make sure you share that channel. We're only 40 folks away from being able to give that 1/4 scale kit of the winner's choice away. There's Chuck.
Hey, I'm back. Sorry,
There
guys.
he is. That's all good.
I don't know what
Must have got a
happened.
phone
I just
call.
happened to look up and my screen was blank. Where'd we leave off at?
You were installing shear webs.
Okay.
You were
Shear webs
cutting.
are
I think
installed.
you just cut your 3/16
Oh,
square.
square for the wingtip brace? Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so I didn't lose you that long.
You
Now,
can hear him?
that 1/4 inch square shim stock, that's the last piece. I removed it. We're glued in place. I didn't glue it to the wing,
Hold
so we're
on.
good.
Hold
I'm
on
gonna
one
use this
second,
now.
Chuck. Hold on one second. Can everybody in the chat hear Chuck? Because I don't think Ronnie can.
No.
Can everybody in the chat hear Chuck? Just let us know. Give us a thumbs up if you can. I don't know if they can hear any of us. Hold on. Okay, they hear Chuck. There it is.
We're good?
Yes, except for Ronnie.
All right.
Ronnie, I'll take you out and then I'll put you back in, see if that fixes it. Moving on. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Chuck.
All right. That's right. So I'll keep chatting away here. Now I've removed that 1/4 inch stock, that shim stock, because I'm going to use that as a shaped piece for on the leading edge on the very top forward spar. That's just a slight angle space, and I'll show you here real quick. Right here, if you'll see it right there, it's this shape right there. So that's the stock. I'll pull in, and I'm going to glue down in place. All right, so I need to cut that, cut the length. Okay. That's the right length. We're in there. And we're in there. Okay. At this point, shear webs are in place. She's still flat on the board, nice and tight, just like we wanted. They'll have you do shear webs later on. Go ahead and do it now. Everything's in place. That way you're not pinning, repinning the wing down in place. I do have my Airline pinned in with the wings. When I remove it, it all comes at one piece. Do not glue it down, or glue it in, just pin it. And that'll be fine. And we'll hinge that later. Okay. As we're unpinning here, let's see how everything is and how well things kind of pop off the board. And if I did everything right, everything will come off good. Oh yeah. Don't worry about the wax paper sticking a little bit. That's what it's designed to do. There we go. Okay. I'm going to put one more pin in the air. I'm going to put 2. I'm going to put 3. Okay. So we've got a wing. We got a wing panel. All right. A couple things. I'm going to go ahead, and we talked about earlier about how everything's squared up, and we do have everything squared up. I'm going to trim off a couple of these loose pieces here just so that there's less sanding to do. And I'll just use that with my Zona saw. It doesn't have to be perfect, guys. This is where you don't have to freak out, all right? We're just trimming some, it's like trimming a brisket. If any of you guys out there do smokers or anything like that, you're just trimming some of the fat away. Right,
Ronnie, can you hear
that.
Chuck?
No.
Why don't you hop out and
I heard you, Ronnie.
He's not hearing you at all. It's all good. He'll hop out and come back in, and it should fix it.
Yep. All right. Okay. All the fat's trimmed off the brisket. So now we have a nice wingtip. Everything looks pretty good. I'm going to come back in here before I do anything else. I'm going to go hit a couple of my shear webs from the inside.
Now you'll notice here on this,
these out. I kind of.
you guys will notice here on this one, I'm showing this wing. I have not installed my shear webs yet because I wanted to be able to see the construction better. I will do that off screen.
I'm just going back right now and re-gluing some of my glue joints and just inspecting. I don't expect everyone to be perfect. Everything's, I know I missed a spot there, so I'm going to re-glue that now I can, and I'm inspecting my work. I'm happy with that. I do need to do these shear webs back here, which this should have been done on the board, and I apologize. So don't do as I say, not as I do. Is that the word? All right. Okay, that's better. Well, better. I'm happy with that now. All right. Now, going back to the plans, we can do a couple things on shaping the wingtips. You can actually cut the wingtip off the plan and use that as a template and lay it across the bottom. Or do like I did, is remember I come back to my circle template. We used this before earlier on in the rest of the airframe. I think we used this. What do we use this on, the fuselage or a rudder? I think it was on the rudder. So anyways, I have my circle template, and all I'm doing is finding that radius that matched, that is on the plans, and then I trace it down on the bottom side of the wing, okay? And that's what I did. Now, I've already done that, but now I'm going to show you. I'm going to now use my good wing panel, the one I finished earlier. I'm going to lay it on top, all right? So I'm going to make two identical looking wingtips. So I'm going to lay it down on top. Everything's matching up really nicely. Glad to see that.
Math man, those are, it's just a way the picture was taken. Those are perpendicular to the leading edge.
Yes, they are. Okay, so I am now tracing my wingtips off the one I've already built. Okay, I've got some marks on there, and that's good. I set that back down. And so now I'm going to use my zone salt and just kind of rough cut a little bit. Keep the salt. I'm a big fan of keeping the sawdust down. Makes my wife happy. Okay, kind of trim that down, and now all I've got to do is sand to that line that I did. Once again, guys, like we talked about, I did change my sandpaper, and boom, done. Airline shape. Okay, and I'll do the same with the leading edge. And at this point, I'm going to introduce a tool that I use quite a bit. So I'm going to put the wing back down on the board. And because the leading edge of the wing is raised up quite a bit higher, the spar can be a little bit, because of the shape of the wing airfoil, and we're using square stock, so now we need to round these spars to the airfoil shape and knock down some of that balsa off the leading edge. We could use sandpaper, okay, and do it that way. The problem with that is you're never perfect enough to get the nice radius edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm using my balsa cutter from Master Air Screw, okay? And what this does, and let me see if I can find a spot here. Actually, I'll do it right here. It's this thing will actually just shave balsa right off in these little curls, all right? And I'll do that, and I'll just keep taking the same sweeps back and forth until I get it knocked down. There you go, Joe. Joe's got that up on the window or the screen.
One of the ones I also like too, I'll bring up, is I actually found a nice one from Cobalt that's a little heavier. So I have both the Master Air Screw and I have the Cobalt 3-inch planer. It's a little bit heavier. So it's a little bit nicer to feel. It's got a little bit more to hang on to, and it's a little bit easier to adjust on the fly. So this is another one that's pretty good.
Yep. Very good. So I'll go ahead and I'll plane down everything on the wing to the point where I'm comfortable to where I'm going to start sanding. And when I use as a gauge on that is if I have to take more than 3 or 4 swipes with my sandpaper to meet that rib or to meet that spar rib intersection, I haven't planed enough. You'll get you'll get used to it. What you can do if you're a little comfortable, maybe you're afraid of you're going to gouge up the wingtip or the the rib airfoil, just put a piece of tape, masking tape, and plane down to the edge. And if you start hitting the masking tape, you're there. Now you're at a good point for sanding. And actually leave that tape back on and keep sanding until that you start to roughen up the edge on that tape, peel it off, and you'll have a nice, clean radius shape. All right. Before we jump into Ronnie, and Ronnie's going to take us through joining the wing panels together. We're gonna shape the wing. We're gonna shape the leading edge. We're gonna do final sanding. All right. Final sand the leading edge. The wingtips have already been rounded, but we from a profile plan view, I should say, but we need to add that radius just like we did the rudder and elevator. So at this point, excuse me, we need to do most of the final sanding. You can even hinge the airline at this point if you want with the flat style hinges. I'm going to do everything I can at this point so that after I glue those two wings together and whatever work we need to do in the center section with the wing together for mounting points, I'm not sanding that wing again. I'm not touching it until I'm ready to cover it. So it just makes it easier to work on. Instead of having a 60-inch piece of 57-inch piece of wing, you're trying to work around on a table and things like that. I'm working in the smallest parts and components that I can just to make it easier and so you don't damage it. Because no doubt if it was me and I glued these two panels together, then I'm trying to shape the leading edge and everything, I'm going to turn it around. I've stuck a wing panel before my ceiling fan above me. So I learned the hard way. So I'm gonna sit there and work on this while Ronnie jumps in here, and we're gonna join the wing panels for tonight. Go ahead, Ron.
I want to clarify something real quick, that we do not shape the leading edge until both wing halves are joined together. I know was a little bit confusing, so I want to make sure that we know you're not going to want to try to shape that leading edge until you have the wing halves joined together. That way you get a smooth transition between all the way across.
Well, Joe, on that topic, what I've done is I've shaped one of my ones already, and I'll actually trace that, okay, to the other wing panel and use that as my marker, and I'll rough it in. I'm going to put it that way, all right? And I'll have it roughed in so that all I need to do is take my long bar sanding and blend that leading edge together, and then we're good.
Yep, that works too.
One key on that is, like Chuck said, if you guys can, make sure you use a long slanting bar when shaping the leading edge. Because if you use a short one, then you're working this area, this area, this area, you're going to get waves in your leading edge. But as far as wing joining, first things first is once you get both your wing panels off the building board, I'd suggest to take your straight edge and just check your building board again, make sure it's level, make sure you don't have to add any more shims underneath it, because now you're not only working on this small section that has to be level, you have twice as long as a space. For me, what me and Chuck have talked about is adding a wing joiner in a sort, because this wing has no joiner connecting the right and left panels. So Joe's going to pull up some pictures of what I have done today to add sort of a small wing joiner, just to add a little bit more strength to the wing there.
It's almost a sub spar, if you will, but just in the center section.
Yes.
This is a mod that we did more for on the beginner side. For scale flying, typical scale flying, it's perfectly adequate in what's done here. But we're trying to get newbies to rookies into building this, and this just adds a little bit extra strength in there for them. Let's call it hard elevator or hard pull maneuvers. We want to make sure that you have a happy and safe, enjoying flying experience. So go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, what you can see is just in front of the main spars, I added a 1/4 inch sub spar, like Chuck said. And for mine is a 1/4 inch by about 3/4 inch thick. But you can also, if you want, just add a 1/4 inch square sub spar on the top spar and a 1/4 inch sub spar on the bottom one. You just have to be aware that the two forward cabane mounts on either end, that your spar isn't long enough to where it interferes with those, which I think there's a picture that I sent to Joe that he can pull up, which shows the forward cabane mounts.
Now, Ronnie, how did you cut in that quarter square subspar? Did you cut it in? How did you, I guess, set that up to do that?
With that, I just took my 1/4 inch piece here. If Joe can show them. And I marked the center of it because our wing, it's not a complete straight wing. It is slightly angled back. So you have to sand a slight angle on this piece here so it fits flush against this front spar.
Okay, because of the sweep of the wing.
Yes. And as far as
now,
the notch
did you
goes,
cut that in,
those
or did you
ribs up
sand
there,
it in?
I took the same 1/4 inch piece here, just added a piece of sticky sandpaper that you can get on a little roll here, and then you can just sand back and forth to where it fits perfectly. Then again, as far as joining the wing, you also have your 1/8 inch plied rear cabane mounting plate, which I took my extra ply laying around, made the doublers, added the blind nuts. Here's what that is right there. Gluing them together, I'm just going to end up using wood glue just because it takes a while to cure, so it gives me time to play with it, make sure everything's all lined up how I want it, and I'm just going to glue it right over the plan so I can see that everything's squared up, and I don't hopefully glue a crooked wing together.
So, Ron, you said you're using wood glue in between the W4s to actually adhere to glue the wings together?
Yes.
Okay. So now at this point, once you have that flat on the board, and I'm assuming you have it pinned in place and everything, and you're happy with, you got the glue drying, are you going to clamp W4s, or are you just going to pin them together?
I'm going to end up clamping them together, and also I'm going to clamp the sub spar that I made to the actual spars, just so I know everything is tight and there are no gaps.
And then the next to the last step is, and I'm just looking forward here on the book, around step 7 is we take some 1/16 inch balsa wood sheet stock, and we trim into 1 inch pieces. All right, and what we do with those 1 inch pieces, then we butt glue them together. And using thin CA is fine. And we're going to actually use these. And remember that here, I'll show you here. This is basically for the pilot to be able to see above him when he's in the cockpit. We're actually going to sheet this with this, why it's pinned down in the board and why everything's drying. We're going to sheet that with 1/16 inch stock that we cut. Okay, 1 inch pieces together. But instead of being like individual pieces, we're going to glue. We're going to make it to be about a 12 inch piece. Okay. All right, we're going to butt glue them all together, and then once it's still on the board, we're going to glue these together. Then CA will be fine. We're going to glue those all together. If you find out that the wood feels like it wants to break, like there's tension there, go ahead and wet it down. A little bit of ammonia, hot water work. What I did, because there was a stack of those sheets, the 3 inch by 5 by 1/16 in my kit, I thumbed through them, guys. I went and found the most softest piece of material that I thought would bend nicely. And once again, guys, you'll get used to just holding the stock. You'll look at it, you'll feel it, which one's lighter, which one's softer, and which one will bend nice. So I went and found the softest piece that was in this bunch on that particular shape size, and that's what I cut my sheets from, or my strips from. So I'm going to do I'm going to butt glue them together, 1 inch, 1 inch high all the way along. While the wing's pinned on the board, I'm going to glue it in place with my thin CA. Let that dry. I won't move that to the board. I'll probably even, excuse me, sawdust. I'll probably pre-sand it a little bit while it's on the board while I'm still waiting for that wood glue to dry in that center section. Okay. And that will almost finish the wing. The last thing we have to do, and this happens when the wing comes off the board, is we have to add in the mounts for our V struts. Okay. which is just simply notching in hardwood points in the wing. And we'll do that, like I said, once again, that's off the board in our hands. And it'll be the last step we do before we actually align the wing panels together and kind of jig the airplane up, if you will, to align everything up. So that's not a big thing. We're not going to go into much detail. It's pretty much cut and dry. It's step number 10 and 11 in the book. That's the last things we do once we have everything off the board. And then from there, that concludes pretty much the top wing. The only thing we'll do further on the top wing is once we get everything mounted with the conveyance struts and the V struts, we'll actually add some 1/16 sheeting that will go across the center section, somewhere about like that. And that is also what's going to add strength to that center section. We'll do that in top and bottom. Right now, we're leaving it open so that we can get in there. We can put blind nuts in. We can mark it with a pencil and everything when we jig that up. So don't worry about that now that you've left that out. That's actually installed later on in the manual. That's probably, I'm thinking maybe Saturday. You might be looking at doing that maybe Saturday or a week from today. So, okay, let's just refresh on what we've done. We've done our wingtip. We've added that 1/4 inch shim on the bottom, not glued in. We just put it down once it was pinned on the board. Added our wingtip, added our corner, triangle stock, stiffeners, a leading spar subcap, and that's just for covering when we do the iron on covering, and now that does it. And then we do our shear spars. Remember our shear webs. That grain runs vertically. They're cut really nice. Do a really nice, neat job on here because that is the integrity of the whole wing. That and what we're doing on the center section, that's what's making this wing very strong, very light, and so you guys get to enjoy many years of flying your nice Nieuport 17. Okay, and while I said, when I still had mine on the board, I used my razor plane, my master skill razor plane, and razor planed everything down to where I was almost flush with everything, and I was very happy with. Pulled it off, used my matching wing to match my wing tips. Sanded those round. At this point, everything is still nice and square, but everything's clean on top and clean on the bottom. And then we have a nice, strong, light wing ready for doing some mounting and getting this thing done. We'll come back on Thursday and we're going to build a lower wing. Just like we did top wing, we will build half of the wing for the show. And so we can show you how we built the other half during the show. The bottom wing, a Nieuport 17, and I might beat this up a little bit. It's known as a sequential wing or sequential biplane. It's not a biplane, it's a wing and a half. So literally the bottom wing on a Nieuport 17 is half the depth or width or the chord than the top wing. So it's very small, very narrow. The guys in World War II had a little bit, or World War I, I'm sorry, had a little bit of problems with them, but it made the plane very agile, maneuverable. So we're going to come back and do that. There's no airline, so it's no really tricky, fussy muss kind of build. Pretty straightforward. It'll have shear webs, just like we did on this wing. It'll have a leading edge, a sub-spar, trailing edge, all that fun stuff. Just no airline, not a complicated wingtip. So it should be a really straightforward build. After that step, we join those together with the center section. Then we get to the really fun part. At that point, guys, our major building is done. Okay, we'll spend a couple of episodes on jigging the airplane together so that we can make sure that the wings are square to each other, they're at the right dihedral, square to the tip, everything like that. That will probably take 2 episodes to do that. We'll take one to square up the wing or mount the bottom wing, and another episode to square up the top wing. After that, we're going to do a little bit of soldering on some things. We'll show you some things on that. There's some great steps in the manual on that. Build the landing gear. Guys, at that point, a little bit of final sanding, a little bit of look through, maybe bench fly it a little bit, and it'll be ready for covering.
Okay,
Joe?
so we've got a couple of questions that have come up. Sean has asked if the color scheme has been picked. So I'm going to add this to the stream. Facebook has apparently taken away the ability to create a poll. So what I've been doing is I've been monitoring the Facebook page, and I'm looking at both of these at the same time. So this scheme right here right now has 5 likes. Okay. This one right here has 5 likes. This one is actually in the lead with 14 likes.
Oh, wow.
And this one is right behind it with 13 likes. So if you want to take a second to vote, that is pinned at the top of the Boss US Facebook page. You can go on there and vote for your favorite. The polling thing has now disappeared, so I'm not sure exactly why, but it doesn't work. So I just did it that way, and I'll be keeping track of the likes. Yes, Greg, a 46 E-Flight 46 brushless would be a good fit. That is going to be quite a bit of power for this model. I'm going to put a 32 rimfire in mine. So as long as you use throttle control, that will be perfectly fine. And that's actually going to give you some weight for the front end. So that will probably be a good thing. I've got the other one that I have, it runs on a power 52. So it will fit, it will work. Just make sure that you're using throttle control, because if you don't, you will fold the wing. I promise you, it will happen.
Perfect. And what we'll do, guys, is we'll take the top 2 of the color schemes. I'll do one. Ronnie will do the other one. So it looks like it's kind of funny because those were the 2 that Ronnie and I first started with. So I'm glad to see those are in the lead. We throw some other ones out. I really like that Polish one. That was kind of cool, something a little bit different. But we got to build them in the French color scheme. So we'll do that as well. And also, who was the guy talking about the E-Flight 46?
Greg.
What was his name? Greg. Yeah, we're looking at the 32 setup, and I'll probably post something, or we'll make an announcement later on what the power setup we're doing now. I'm actually doing some calculations now. I'm leaning on a 32 for a couple of reasons, and I'll let you know about that later when I finally decide. And I'll actually say what the speed controller is going to be, the size of the propeller, the watts we're going to be pulling, batteries, that kind of thing. But that's kind of where I'm looking at now, just from a performance versus flight time kind of thing.
Yeah, all that already exists over on the Boss USA YouTube. I did a electric conversion episode over on the YouTube channel, and all that information is already there with battery sizes and motor sizes and prop sizes and all those different things. So there's plenty of information out there. And if you have any questions like that, make sure you feel free and ask. That's what we're here for. Let's see. I think that's going to be it on questions. I don't see any other. Yes, we will be live on Saturday. So don't forget, we're live Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Saturdays, 12 to 1. Unless it's going to be beautiful, then I'm not going to say we won't play hooky and go flying. It doesn't look like we're going to run into that issue again before the series is over. Here, at least here in Michigan, it looks like it's going to be fairly cold and mostly windy. So probably not going to have to worry about it too much. Don't forget to swing over by bossusa.com, enter in coupon code N17BUILD, all caps, no spaces, to get 10% off your very own 1/6 scale Nieuport 17 kit so that you can follow along with us. And time is running out on the Boss USA YouTube 1/4 scale giveaway, guys. Make sure you get over there and make sure that you subscribe and share that page so that people will subscribe. We're 40 people short of having enough to give away that 1/4 scale kit, and the cutoff is this Friday. So you have 3 days, and that's going to go away. So 40 more people is all we need. So make sure you're liking it and make sure you're sharing it. I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank all of our guests. I want to thank Chuck, and I want to thank Ronnie for coming along for the ride. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and happy building.